You know those days when you walk into the gym, you see the workout, and you instantly think, I am going to crush this workout. You move well, you feel strong, and you walk out with confidence and a pep in your step. Now, we've also talked about the importance of identifying the areas where we need improvement. There's so much strength in leaning into the things that come naturally, too. There's a place for both. Business works the same way. When you build around your strengths, everything feels more aligned, more sustainable, and probably a lot more fun. Today's guest is a great example of what it looks like to do exactly that. My guest today is Taylin John Simmons, founder of Ghostly, a social media and newsletter ghostwriting agency that specializes in attracting quality leads for founders, coaches, and consultants. He also is a partner at Ghost Growth, training the top 1% of ghostwriters. But it's how he landed in his current role that I think you'll find particularly interesting. But before we get to chatting, we start every episode with our listener question in a segment called Hey Coach. So, what would you ask if you had a business coach in your back pocket? Submit your question to Leslie at thefitnessofbusiness.com. Hey Coach, I keep hearing about personal branding, so it must be important. I'm a pretty private person, and I also want to be taken seriously as a professional. So, I don't want to share every detail of my personal life just to stay relatable, but I also know I need to show up online if I want to grow. How do I build a personal brand that feels authentic and human without oversharing and without undermining my credibility? Well, Taylin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
thanks for being here. So, I would love to just hear about how you came to the position that you're currently in because I mean, I think your story is really interesting. I think it's super unconventional. And I'd love to just start there.
Yeah, so I'll try to do the short version in a couple phases. So I've always wanted to be an artist. That is where my true passion lies. I think I fell in love with movies when I was a kid, like and TV shows, Power Rangers, Pokemon. The sense of wonder you get when you see a piece of art, and I pursued that through music first in my early 20s, and I did end up getting a independent record deal and doing music full time, which at the time, that was my big goal, was if I just
Yeah.
do music full time, then awesome, like, I've made it.
Yeah.
But I did do that, but I wasn't making very much money. Like, I couldn't afford to fix my car when the wheel was broken and struggled to pay rent, wasn't able to go on vacations with my family. Like, I was, like, bare minimum making money. Like, it I share the example that one time I was so broke, I needed to wait 3 days to get paid, and all I had in my fridge was 3 lemons that people had left because they were using them in their Coronas. So I ate 1 a day for 3 days while I waited to get my next paycheck.
That was a very popular cleanse back in the early 2000s.
That's what I tell myself is, "It was just a cleanse. I'm not broke. I'm
Right.
cleansing."
You were actually trailblazing. Yeah.
Yes, I was a first mover.
That's right.
So
Wow.
that was pretty crazy. It was fun to do art, but it made me realize that, I did want to take care of the financial side as well, and that led to me becoming a college teacher with a career pivot, which was really fun. I didn't make the most amount of money as a college teacher, but it was definitely an upgrade from eating lemons for dinner. So that was great.
There's a
I
food
actually
hall there.
yeah, so yeah. There's a so actually, and ever since I was a kid, I did wanna be a teacher as well,
Mhm.
like, I had considered it, so to be able to do that, in my early 20s was great, like, I became a college teacher at 23,
Wow.
was very intimidating, a lot of my students were older than me, so it was
Yeah.
definitely, a call to responsibility and to grow up quite quickly, and I love teaching, it was super fun, I learned a lot about systems thinking, about public speaking, about organizing thoughts, that was my first intro into writing, but after about 5-ish, 6-ish years of being a teacher, it just felt like I wasn't challenged anymore. I did feel like I needed to make more money and I wanted more location freedom and independence. And around this time is when I was dating someone who actually lived in Europe and I was in Western Canada. And we were going to break up if I didn't find a way to make income online. So I ended up meeting someone at a coffee shop that was like, "Hey, I run this online business on Twitter. And trust me, if you write every day on Twitter for an entire year, it will change your life. And I was
Hmm.
like, well, what do I have to lose? So I
Yes.
decided to start posting on Twitter. And within 6 months of that, I got introduced to different opportunities, such as creating digital products, starting a service based business. And then I found ghostwriting social media content. It took me about 6 months to acquire the skill, which was a lot of work because I was working full time and doing that on the side and on the weekends. But after 6 months of really working hard at it, I was able to land my first client, and
Hmm.
then everything changed, and we've just been scaling the agency from there.
So this is the person that you're still working with.
So the first client, I don't work with him anymore, but after I landed him, I was like, "Oh, this is really cool. I would actually love to build this with someone." I went to my best friend from high school and was like, "Hey, I'm writing for people on Twitter. Do you want to do that too?" And he's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" He's like a forklift operator at Pepsi, and he was going to college to be a psychologist. And I was like, "Yeah, you can, like, write on Twitter and make money and stuff." And he was like, "What? That's so weird." And he ended up being like, "I'll give it a shot." So he did it as well with me on the evenings and the weekends while he was working full time and was in a committed relationship and was going to college. And after 6 months, we were just at a place that we were doing so well, we were both like, "Hell, let's just drop everything and go all in," and we haven't looked back since.
So, okay, so you said you writing every day on Twitter. Um, but how did you know what to write? Like, where did you even start?
I didn't.
Fair.
Uh, I used to read a lot. So I used to read about like 100 books a year back before I was in business. It was like pretty much my favorite pastime. I would just like
Wow.
work and read.
Hmm.
And when I talked to this guy at the coffee shop, we were talking about all the books and all the knowledge. And he's like, "Man, you know so much stuff. Like, why don't you write about it?" And I'm like, I don't know what I would write. I don't know like who would care. And he's like, just start, man. Like just start and just figure it out. And I remember being so terrified to make my first tweet. So I'm like, what if I post something dumb, or what if I get roasted, and what if I get criticized? And it took overcoming a lot of inertia to even post online for the first time. And I don't even remember. I was just posting like literally whatever came to mind. It was like
Yes.
life advice, maybe men's dating tips, a little bit about stoicism.
Hmm.
And then I do remember my first tweet that it did 14 likes, which for me at the time was, like, insane. I'm like, I had something do 14 likes, like, this is crazy, and it said, "Don't be nice because you have to be nice because you want to be." And, I used to have a picture of it. I don't know how I accidentally deleted it, but I wish I still had it. But I remember, like, when that tweet got 14 likes, I'm like, "Oh, I can do this. I just need to get better." And then
Huh.
I just slowly iterated from there.
That's so interesting because I feel like there's constant conflicting messages, especially when it comes to like posting content, creating your brand. Like, you have to niche down, you have to niche, you have to niche. And kind of what you're saying in this example is at least like I didn't. I just started with whatever came to mind, and that eventually kind of maybe more organically led you to the niche. Um, I don't know. Is that accurate or
It is accurate. The model I think of for niching is if you're just starting out, the main problem or bottleneck that needs to be overcome is just posting and showing up consistently. Like, my girlfriend's actually just started posting on Substack recently, and, we have conversations about this. She's like, "Do I pick a niche, or do I talk about this? But then can I also talk about this other thing I'm interested in?" And I'm like, "Right now, you can write whatever you want. Until you've been consistent for, like, 1 to 2 months,
Mm,
I don't think it really matters. Like, let's just get
yeah.
you posting and getting the reps and getting used to formats." But then once you start posting consistently, you'll start being like, "Okay, that part's not hard anymore. I want to see more results for my effort."
Mhm.
And I think the first thing to niche into that, well, most people will, is usually a skill. So they'll learn a skill in public. For me, it was ghostwriting and
Mhm.
writing in general, and I just shared the tips that I was learning, the outcomes that I was getting, like what writing was doing for me in terms of benefits with mental clarity as well as career opportunities. And slowly, just through like learning in public and talking about it, I became a niche expert to some degree. Not to say I'm
Yeah.
like, a Dostoevsky of a writer, but became like some form of niche expert. But then for some people, they stay there and they just own that one niche. And for
Mhm.
other people, if you have more of like a multiple interest or you're multi-passionate, that probably feels too limiting. And that's where I got to. Where I'm like, I don't want to just talk about writing and ghostwriting. I want to talk about other things I'm interested in, such as creativity, philosophy, lifestyle design, and like the arts in general. But I was like, how do I talk about this? And I went through a very confusing time with my brand where I tried talking about multiple things and no one really knew what my brand was about. I actually lost a lot of my authority in writing
Hmm.
and ghostwriting because I didn't talk about it for so long. And it took me probably 2 years of experimenting to realize that if you're multi-passionate, your niche needs a unifying outcome.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do all these things combine to create? And for me, it's a way of life.
Hmm.
So, like, why would someone follow me? Like, I do still talk a lot about writing at this point in my career, so I don't talk about this as much, but it could be for writing and writing-based outcomes, but it could also be, what is the way of life that these beliefs, these skills, and these habits allow you to live? And that's the unifying mechanism behind someone who's, like, multi-passionate. So that's, like, another example of how you can do a niche if, picking one single lane is just too difficult, but
Yeah.
it just, it's those phases. You just start at the beginning, you slowly work your way up as you get experience.
Yeah, well, and it's almost like you have to kind of, like, earn the right to then kind of pull in these other, interests and, areas of expertise, like, once you've got sort of the audience, like, bought into what you have to say, um, maybe it's a
Mhm.
little bit easier to diversify at that point as opposed to trying to, uh, just cast a really, really wide net and see what sticks.
It is tough, like, wide net is a lot more competitive because there's a lot of
Mhm.
people that tend to be giving that advice. Typically, the more successful you are, the broader you're able to go and people will still listen.
Yeah.
Like, we've noticed this driving leads for businesses where someone like Alex Hormozy, Cody Sanchez, like those types, they can talk about just general business. Like, here's how to grow any business. And people are like, oh, they're an expert. I trust them and I'm going to listen. If you're someone who doesn't have a whole lot of credibility and you're like, here's how to grow any business, people just aren't going to tune in. They're not going to listen. And we've tried to drive leads as ghostwriters for these companies and these coaching offers where it's like, we'll just help you scale any business. And they don't really get many leads. So the way you fix that is you actually become a little more niche on this specific type of business that you're building. Like, there's one guy on Twitter, we don't ghostwrite for him, by the way, but he's the vendingpreneur. So he's like, I will help you start a vending machine business. People might think, well, how profitable would that be? Like, vending machines, what the heck? But he
Very.
crushes.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently it's very
I
profitable.
know. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I've done
And
it, but I know people who have, and it is very profitable.
yeah, it's a good, like, cash flow business, and, if and the good thing about that brand is when people go to him, it's like, "Okay, do I want to start a vending machine business?" It's either yes or no. If the answer is yes, you're like, "Well, I'm gonna go to the vending machine guy," and if it's no, well, then maybe they come to someone like me if they wanna do a ghostwriting business, or
Yep.
they go to somebody else if they wanna do a copywriting business, or somebody else if they wanna do, like, a consulting business. So that in the beginning, you do wanna be a bit more niche so that your knowledge is more specific and someone knows like this is the exact business I want to build, and then eventually you'll cap out and then you'll want to broaden up to get bigger, but it comes at a different stage.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because, in this world of just so much noise and everybody is competing for attention and to get visibility, like trying to be a generalist, when
Mm.
you are just starting out, it's gonna be that much harder to get noticed. But, to your point, the vending machine guy, it's like that there is no gray in that. You either want it or you don't, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, like I'd say as a business owner, where you want to be in the beginning is you actually want to be a specialized generalist. So you want to be specialized at one thing. So for me, it tends to be writing and ghostwriting.
Mhm.
But then in order to scale your business, you will have to be a generalist at other things.
Yeah.
So I would consider myself a generalist at sales. I'm
Mhm.
not amazing, but I'm not bad. I would say I'm a generalist at copywriting, but my co-founder is more of a specialist in that than I am,
Mhm.
and probably a generalist in graphic design as well as like audio and video production. Well, actually, I'm an audio specialist technically. But like that's where you want to figure out like what are the things I actually need to be like pretty close to world class at least 80%. Like I'm better than most people. Specialize in like one or two things and need to be a generalist at the rest so they don't bottleneck your business and you like growing. And then if you eventually aspire to be polymathic like Leonardo da Vinci or something, you want to slowly acquire more and more specialist knowledge until you're a specialist at like 4 or 5 different things, but all of those things connect and they unify to create an outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, like, going back to sort of your career, the beginning of your career and starting in the music industry, like, because I started in musical theater too, so that's kind of where I got my foray into entrepreneurship, and I did my own one woman shows. Um a- and, I didn't really realize it at the time that this was like, oh, I have to put this all together from start to finish. Hey, I ran my own little business. Um but I think that there's so much value in the skills that have innately or develop or hone as a child or young adult. And I'm curious, like, how you feel like your musician skills and your teaching skills, teaching music skills, have translated, through the course of your career.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And at the heart of it is a tension that I experienced, like transitioning to different careers was I always felt like, if I gave up music, then it was a waste of time. Like, oh,
Mm,
I spent like 5 or 7 years on that. What a waste. And then when I was giving up teaching, I'm like, oh, like, was that a waste of time? And eventually I realized that it's not a waste of time if you develop transferable skills
mhm.
that will stick with you no matter what you're transitioning into. So
Yeah.
the goal as you upgrade in your career is you don't want to be starting from zero where none of your skills transfer. You always want to be moving to domains with those transferable skills. And for me, I would say music helped me develop taste, like just understanding, intuitively what do people want to listen to. So I think that that was kind of my introduction to that as an artist. Most importantly, I would say music taught me systems thinking and how to think in more like complex systems. Like a drum loop can sound good on its own, and you're like, that sounds great. But then you throw a guitar that isn't rhythmically in sync with it, and you're like, why does this sound so bad? But both of them sound great on their own. That has really helped me in everything I've done as a business to think in systems or even writing. Like, oh, this sentence is good on its own, but oh, it doesn't work in the larger like structure or system of this paragraph,
Yeah.
and like that just expands out. Music like really taught me that. Teaching, I would say, taught me about the importance of first principles and that it's about doing the basics really, really well. And I was one of those people who didn't believe that when I started. And I was caught in that loop of someone else always has a secret thing or a new tactic, or they know all these things that I don't know and they know all this advanced stuff. And if I learn that, then I'll be good at this thing. But through doing music for so long and then teaching music, I just started to realize it's like if you can do the basics really, really well, that is like 90% of the craft.
Mm.
Like it just became so apparent to me after so many years of teaching it from the ground up. Like students would be like, "Oh, there's something super wrong with my song," and I would literally just go over, listen, and say, "Yeah, your drums aren't loud enough."
Mm.
And they would turn the drums up, and then the song would be fine. But they're like, "Oh, do I got to do all this other complex stuff? Do I got to rewrite this and rewrite this?" It's like literally your drums are just too quiet.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Huh.
And that learning that from teaching, really changed my approach to everything else that I do in life, where I just look for what are like the 4 or 5 things that are very simple that even a beginner would learn, but can I get world class at those? And then
Mm.
that will probably help me be a lot better at my craft.
Yeah, and maybe this is where you can talk a little bit more about, like, the importance of lifestyle for you and how everything sort of integrates into a balanced lifestyle, because my approach is the same, very holistic, and that's why fitness is such a huge component of what I do, and a tenet of building strength in everything you do. But um, my question is, like, what kind of intentionality and intentional practices does it take to stay so hyper focused on becoming world class at those few things when we are, like I said before, we're just bombarded with? But but you should do this and this person's doing this and you should be on LinkedIn, you should be on Substack. I mean, it's just like it can be very overwhelming. So curious how you handle that.
Well, it's not always easy. I feel FOMO just as much as, everybody else does, and shiny object syndrome. But there's something my co-founder always says to students that we work with. Um, and the other day, one of them said, Taylin told me something, and then you told me a different strategy. And then somebody else told me a different strategy, and I read a different strategy on LinkedIn. Like, what do I do? Like, who's right and wrong? My co-founder says, no one's wrong. They all work. Just actually pick one. And that has really stuck with me. It's like, I've grown on X, or Twitter, and then I grew on LinkedIn, and now I've grown on Substack, and I'm also starting YouTube.
Hmm.
And it's just made me realize each of those things are their own, like, cultural and digital environment.
Yeah.
Like, X is a little more Wild West and at the cutting edge. LinkedIn's a little bit more curated, and it's a little bit cringy, but, like, it has to be because people don't wanna get fired because of their jobs.
It's a lot of it.
Substack.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and Substack's, like, really good for substance, and then YouTube's probably the best long form platform. But
Mm,
I would say you can just pick one of those short form platforms that you just really vibe with and
yeah.
your content works really well in and you thrive in that environment and just go all in on that. And then I would recommend adding one long form into the mix as well. So, we're doing this podcast. It's fantastic. What we found getting leads for people is one short form to capture attention, one short form
Mhm.
platform, podcast or long form YouTube or lead magnets or courses to drive traffic to build trust. And then you're able to get sales. So for me, I'm like, okay, there's all this different places to capture attention. If I just do Substack and YouTube really well for 5 years, I'm confident that I'll win, at least the game that I'm playing. And that helps me shut everything else out is just be like, everything works, but this is the game that I'm deciding to play because it feels like those are the environments and places where I have some form of advantage and that I just am uniquely fitted to win.
Yeah. Okay. So define win.
Well, that's definitely a personal thing is, and maybe that's where to start is like every person does have to define this for themselves and it does evolve over time. For me, winning used to be, can I make a full-time income online? And when I did that, it's like, "Oh my god, I'm winning." And then it became, "Okay, can I not lose this income? Because I
Yeah.
don't wanna go back to my job."
Oh, yeah, that.
And for a long time, that's what it was. And now I've been full-time doing this for, like, almost 4 years, and I'm feeling more secure in my ability to make the income and less anxious around that. So now it's like, "Okay, well, could I build a high leverage ecosystem around my interests and a way of life that allows me to make between like 20 and 40K per month. And then I can just live my life where I can enjoy surfing like 2 or 3 times a week. I have other interests as well that I would love to explore. Like my girlfriend's becoming a breathwork instructor. I
Good.
would love to become a breathwork instructor because it's really helped me with managing acute stress in my
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in that. I'm interested in hosting retreats on spirituality and like bringing people to Costa Rica and Peru to like attend retreats that I've done in the past few years that have been life changing. And
Yeah.
to me, that would be winning, like creating content every week, being artistic, feeling like I don't have to sell out for the algorithm and that I've found a way to get people interested in the things I'm interested in, while
Yeah.
also being able to explore these other interests and, slowly become a polymath as I approach like my 40s and 50s. That's what winning looks like to me.
Yeah. I think, to the point you just made at the episode I just put out this week is about redefining success, that not every, metric that measures success is going to be on your P&L statement or your number of likes or engagement or whatever. And, I think I did that episode probably more for me than anybody or as much for me as anybody. But I think it's just like, it's a really important, internal conversation to circle back to often is like, what am I winning? And are there areas where I'm winning, even if overall maybe there's, some things I want to tweak or do better. But to be able to reflect on the positive outcomes. Um, I think is just
Mhm.
really, really important to remember.
Yeah, it is for sure. Like, it sounds like what you're saying is alignment is really important. Like, what does alignment uniquely look like to you? And, I it's so tough because I think online people market the, "Oh, I'm gonna be like a multimillionaire and build this big company." And then other people are like, "Ah, like, I don't really need the money. Like, I'm not that kind of person." It's like, it's okay to just be honest and
Mhm.
selfish about your goals. Um,
Totally.
like, you can have a selfless goal and a selfish goal and say selflessly, I wanna help, people. In my case, I wanna help more writers understand how to earn an income, and I wanna help
Yeah.
more artists realize how do you actually make a full-time living as an artist.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I would love to live off of around, like, $40,000 a month and do it high income and be able to travel and pursue multiple interests, and I used to demonize money a little bit more than I do now. I've come to accept that, like, okay, it's not the end all be all thing for me, but having a good amount of money to live a specific lifestyle is important to me, and,
Yeah.
I'm tired of trying to tell myself that that isn't important, and I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing a certain level of wealth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I am also aware that I'm impressionable if I hang around the wrong people, and they all of a sudden, I will start desiring more wealth when I don't
Mhm.
really actually value the things that that wealth would give me. And that's where
Yeah.
I've lived to kinda know that 20 to 40K is the pocket for me where I'm like, "Okay, I don't feel like I need more personally, but I would maybe pursue more if I had an artistic project that I wanted to distribute or something, I needed more money to actualize it." So I just think it's about being honest about your own alignment and being okay with saying selfishly, "I want this," and, like, selflessly, "I wanna help people with this."
Yeah, it's like and also knowing what levers you can pull when, depending on what's motivating. Like you said, if something big comes up that you wanna be able to fund, you can pull the levers, that enable it to do so, or you can coast for 6 months if you feel like you're in a good spot and you wanna just, take a little break. So I think yeah, I don't think anyone should should feel like they need to apologize for whatever it is that their goal is, as long as it's honest. Quick pause. I was that kid in school whose notes everyone wanted to borrow before the test. Color coded, organized, the whole deal. I'm still doing it, but now for entrepreneurship instead of AP Bio. My Substack is basically me sharing my notes with you. The podcast gives you the big ideas. My Substack shows you how to implement them. Step by step guides, templates, and real stories from the trenches. Subscribe for free at leslieboyce.substack.com. That's LESLIEBOYCE. And let's take this from theory into practice. Because knowing you should hit the gym and actually getting there to do the reps are two very different things. So, I guess talk a little bit about talk about ghostwriting. You're the first person I've had on my podcast who is a ghostwriter who has a business in ghostwriting, and I feel like it's a term that who knows, maybe it's the algorithm, but now I'm just starting to hear it more and more, and I think a lot of people just don't even know what it is, that it exists, and who it would be for.
Yeah, so I think most people traditionally, if they know about ghostwriting, they think it's ghostwriting books. Like, I think people know that famously, Shoe Dog, the Nike story was, like, a ghostwritten book. I think it's one of the most, like, publicly known ones. So I used to think, okay, like, to make money as a writer, I need to either write books, ghostwrite books, or do freelance. And when I got onto Twitter, ghostwriting, I got introduced to it in this new way where people were like, "Hey, I'm writing Twitter content and I'm getting paid between like $2,000 and $4,000 a month to write on Twitter." I was like, "What the hell? That's crazy." Like at the time as a college teacher, I was making like $3,000 Canadian a month. So when I was hearing that people were making more than me by writing for a client, I was very interested. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I landed my first ghostwriting client for 50 cents a follower, which added to about $3,000 a month, that I'm like, wow, I just replaced my like 40-hour per week income with one ghostwriting client that I'm, doing 2 or 3 days of work a month on. This is crazy. Um, and the reason I became so passionate about ghostwriting wasn't necessarily because I love ghostwriting. It was more about the power of the vehicle itself. It's like, wow, the writers can actually write for a living, and there's a viable way to do it aside from writing a book. Like,
Yeah.
this was insane to me, and I was through doing that, I was meeting some people that were teaching me tons of stuff. Like, a lot of the clients that were willing to pay that amount were founders and business owners. Some of them were running, like, $100 million companies, and I was sitting down with them on calls, and they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna tell you everything I learned this week so you can turn it into content." I'm like, "Are you paying me to teach me about business? Like, this is crazy."
Right, right, yeah,
Um
that's an added benefit.
Yeah, it's a huge added benefit, and that doesn't mean it's not a lot of work, like, keeping up with algorithms, and it's become more competitive and, more competitive to land clients. Like, it definitely is a lot of work to be a ghostwriter, but it just showed me, like, wow, if you can get pretty decent at writing newsletters or social content, and you can be a bit of a generalist at business and can acquire clients and do a bit of sales, you can make, like, a pretty, like, honest living writing in the next, like, 6 to 12 months, and that was what, like, completely broke my brain and made me fall in love with the vehicle.
Well, as it relates to building a personal brand, I'm really curious how if someone wanted to, if I wanted to hire you to do, my content writing, but my personal brand is me and my voice and my, quirks or whatever. I mean, how can you maintain someone's personality and their voice in their personal brand when they're not the ones doing the writing?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I'll first say that I kinda reject the notion of a personal brand because I think it's an oxymoron. Like, a brand to me is by default manufactured and curated. So when
Mm.
I hear personal and brand together, I'm like, I don't really think that even makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, I prefer to think of it as personal perspective. It's like what is the actual thing? What are the things that you think? What's the unique way that you see the world? What are the things that you value? And to me, that helps as a ghostwriter actually do the actions that would allow me to create a quote unquote personal brand for someone.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like curating something fake. I'm more pulling at what is like honest and authentic to this person that they're willing
Mhm.
to share online. And a lot of that is when I interview them, I have a list of questions that kind of follow social media frameworks. So I know that I'm getting the information I need, such as, okay, what did you learn this week? And then, oh, like, what was a mistake that happened? Was there a consequence of not knowing that? What were the
Mm.
lessons? And like, how did you arrive at that? How did that affect like other areas of your life or your business? And those types of questions, and just interviewing someone for an hour or two and getting their honest responses on a transcript is like the absolute beginning. So being a good interviewer, basically what you're doing now. And then I can take the transcript, and it's less about, okay, I need to just now take those ideas and write them how I would write them. It's how do I take the words, the language, and the perspective that exists in here, and the experience, and just word it in a way that is going to perform better for the medium that I'm writing for.
Yeah.
And that's been the middle ground for us. It all comes down to being a good interviewer.
Yeah. Which I think is a highly undervalued skill.
Agreed. Yeah.
Thank you. We're done. Um,
Yeah, we're done here.
just needed you to validate me. Um, um, have you ever had an instance where you've been asked to do some writing and it's a topic or a perspective or angle that like it really does not align with your own values that you felt uncomfortable pursuing?
Never to that extent. I'm also not very socially sensitive, so that could be a component. Even my DNA tests tell me that I'm low in altruism, so I'm like, maybe there's something to that. Eh.
Wait, what was your your tweet that went viral with 14 likes?
Oh yeah, don't be nice because you have to be. Be nice because you want to be. Yeah. So
Huh. Okay,
yeah,
all right, we'll talk about
like
alignment there.
I've I will say that I've had to write stuff that I'm kind of like, I probably wouldn't say this, or I don't think
Mhm.
this is correct, or I think this is a little rude. Like, there was one. It's actually the first client I think that I ever had. His whole thing was, I want to be as polarizing as possible. Like, he's like, I want to like piss people off on the timeline. If we're not pissing off half the people that read it, it's not bold enough.
Mm.
So he very much would push me. and again, this is not my thing, I'm not a conflict person, I'm more agreeable. He would push me to be like, "Hey, this needs to be, like, ruder, it needs to be bolder, it needs to, like, really call out the other side." And I didn't really agree with that because I personally think that that's bullying. I think there's too many people that are like, "Hey, I'm going to, like, piss off half the world just so that I can gain power and attention." And I would say it's something in the social media world I'm quite against. And I did have to write that type of content, which was not to the point that I was like morally disgusted by it or anything. Cause I'm like, maybe there is something to this. And I tried to see the benefit in his approach, but it was extremely uncomfortable for me to write for that particular client.
Yeah. I get angry when I see someone's social media following growing and growing and growing, and their content is just, like, rooted in controversy and anger and with their goal of pissing a lot of people off, but it gains the attention, like you said, and it feels, I don't know, cheap? I
Yeah. I
I
feel
don't
that
know.
too.
Okay.
When you've been in the
Alright.
game long enough, you hit a point of like knowing what cheap content is. I
Totally.
find cheap is like the hate content and the really controversial stuff, but it's also the really fluffy inspirational stuff where you just kind of know
Yes.
that it's going to hit. Those are like the two forms of cheap that come to mind.
Yes. So how like, what advice would you give somebody who wants to get started in creating content and says, "Okay, I know I need to just be posting consistently. I don't know if I'm a very good writer. I don't wanna come across as cheap or fluffy." Like, I don't know, you said you just started with whatever was going on, but maybe, like, how would you have them almost, like, interview themselves in order to come up with maybe a plan?
Mm. It's a tough question to answer because the advice that I would give to somebody to get good is not the advice I would give to somebody to start. It goes back to, are you posting consistently on social media? And some students will say, well, no, I'm not posting. I'm kind of scared. And like, what am I going to post? And there's too much inertia and mental chatter and fear around just doing the posting itself, which is totally normal. We all start there. So my advice to them is always like, just write. Like, I don't even care if it's bad. It doesn't matter if it's good. Like,
Mm,
yes, you might post some stuff that is a little bit cringy. Maybe it sounds a little too much like AI if you're leaning into it too much. Maybe it's really unfocused and it's not relevant to really anybody, but that's okay. We all go through that stage. Like every master starts as a fool.
yeah.
So it's like that's a rite of passage. And then once they
Yes.
start posting consistently, again, it becomes a game of like, okay, well, now how do I get good? And
Yeah.
if someone wants to get good, I do believe in you emulate before you create.
Mm,
So, find people that you really like and take the topics that they're talking about and write them from your own perspective. And if you don't have a perspective on that topic, well, now you know what to learn. So go and study to gain a perspective. So now you're like learning in public, you're challenging yourself and expanding your knowledge and your mind. And
yeah.
then when it comes to hooks, it's like, okay, well, emulate other people's hooks.
Mhm.
There's like an art and a science to it. Figure out what made that hook work? What are the components of it that cannot be taken out? Because if you remove them, now it's so much more risky that that hook is going to perform. But
Yeah.
then you also don't want to steal it. So then what parts are you going to change that will not ruin the total essence of the hook?
Right.
This again is like it's basically pattern recognition and
Mm,
development of taste that comes over time. And these are the little exercises that I would recommend that people do to start to get good.
hmm.
As for like what questions would I have them ask? It's a little bit different because if you're writing social media content, I guess you could argue that all content just answers questions. Like, I have a theory that all good writing is tension. Like, without tension, there is just no such thing as good writing. So there's a big question and we need an answer. There's a problem and we need a solution. There's
Yeah.
pain, but we need relief.
Yep.
There's conflict and we need a resolution. And no matter what you're writing, if it's good, it has tension in it, which means that there is an unanswered question. So
Yeah.
I think your question of what questions to ask is very powerful because that is how you would get to the heart of really good writing. But it depends on what someone is writing for what questions they should ask themselves. But your thinking is in the right direction.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of AI, so you started this business AI had already been in existence for a little while, right?
No, I started
Oh,
pre-AI
no.
era.
Oh, you did? Okay, so you but this current business that you have is about 3 years old, but with Twitter, that was w pre-AI.
I think AI showed up when I was about a year into ghostwriting. So
Okay.
my first year was without it.
So how has AI impacted you, your business, your feeling about writing, both positive and negative?
Um, well, in some ways, it has actually empowered my business, which is not what people expect. Because before AI, research was a pain in the ass, even though now fact checking it is kind of a pain in the ass when you use AI.
No, it's all
Um,
accurate. It's yeah.
yeah,
No,
it's all accurate. Don't question it.
yeah. If you don't question it, then you'll never know.
Yeah, exactly. You never know, and then it's fine. You just I didn't know.
I give excellent
Um,
advice.
yeah, on the business side, we used to have a team of 10 writers to do our fulfillment. So it was like me, a co-founder, and 10 writers. AI came out and our writers went from 10 to 2 because
Wow.
it was like 2 writers empowered by AI. And, some people were really upset about things like that, being like, wow, I can't believe all these people lost jobs. But I actually felt really good about that. I was like, well, there before I had to spread all these clients amongst 10 people and everyone didn't make that much money. Now
Mm,
there's 2 people that make a pretty honest full-time living on my team, and
yeah.
my co-founder and I still make a good living. So we can have a smaller team where everyone makes more money because we're more leveraged.
Yeah.
And that has been very useful to us. I would say on the downside of the business side of it, it has made ghostwriting more accessible to more people, so it's definitely opened up the doors to more competition like technology always does, and there are some clients now who are like, "Well, I can just use AI to write my content myself."
Mhm.
And yeah, there's more people that do that, and that's totally fine, but there's still people who just don't wanna do it.
Mhm.
Like, I use this analogy that I get asked this a lot. They go, "Well, your clients can just use AI to write, so why would they hire you?" And I'm just like, "Okay, no problem. Why don't you yourself go and use AI and you write something and I'll write something and we'll see whose is better."
Yeah. Yeah. Right, and
It's
then
like
who can repeat it?
yes.
Yeah.
And so it becomes very obvious that, the person who doesn't know marketing and writing using AI can do something decent, but the person who does know it and has the taste and is plugged into the meta and using AI will produce a better result. So there's still an arbitrage of skill and attention to make money off of that difference. So that's the business side. I can go into the writing side if you like, but we could also stop there.
Well, I guess, just on the business side, just to kind of follow up with that, I think this is true of so many things in business, pretty much everything in business and in fitness is like your results are only as effective as the implementation. Like you can create all the
Mhm,
training programs and all the systems and you can put all of your writing through AI. But if you don't then have a process for implementing and knowing the right way to implement something, then,
mhm.
you're going to be pretty much stuck where everyone else is.
I totally agree. And in terms of the implementation, because we're talking about like personal brands and things like that. Like one big change in the industry that I've noticed is, there was the information age of the internet, and now we're in what I would consider to be the perspective age. Because
Mm,
information is commoditized and everyone can access it so quickly, it's no longer valued. So social media content can't really get attention, or at least a quality attention, if it just shares information. So what becomes more important is the curation of perspectives. So who
yeah.
has a unique perspective on that information, or maybe even more useful than that, is a useful perspective that it's like, "Oh, okay, like, this is how I would implement that knowledge. This is,
Mhm.
like, knowledge worth paying attention to versus not," and that perspective is what everything is filtered through.
Yeah.
So, nowadays, I think AI is really good for helping you with structures, with maybe pushing back on your thinking, so the thinking part of the writing goes a bit slower, but it's more deliberate. Some elements of the writing process are quicker, but those that outsource their perspective and have AI actually write the drafts, I think they're the ones who lose. And the ones who use AI tactfully in the writing process, but still
Yeah.
have a unique perspective and experience to pull on and a unique story, are the ones who win.
Yeah. I think, like, one of the first things I learned about AI in terms of how to utilize it was not just yeah, I mean, yes, it can clean up writing and all of that, but to use it as a thought partner And so I've definitely been trying to do that more and more where I'm like, all right, here's this idea I have, here's who I'm targeting, here's what I have written. Poke holes in it. Like if you were this person, what do you find valuable? And then what's missing that and that's like that's great. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I
I agree. Yeah,
yeah.
I do something very similar. It's like, give me the objections to this section.
Yep.
Um, you know, what are things that aren't clear and are maybe too abstract? Where have
Mhm.
I missed examples? Like all of that kind of stuff. Like the same questions you would ask like a writing coach or an editor,
Yep.
you can just ask AI. So it's fantastic, and especially on the business side of things, like stuff that used to take me quite a while. Like, oh, I need to put together a new offer doc for my offer. Now I just like dictate into AI. Hey, like my business is launching a new thing. Like, here's the offer. Here's the deliverables. I need them all to map to outcomes, and I want it to be framed desirably. Can you put together an offer doc? Here's a reference of a previous one, and I can create
Yeah,
an offer doc in like 15 minutes.
I know.
Um, it's like that type of stuff, it's so good for on the business side.
It really is. And of course only getting better, which
Yeah.
is I guess awesome and a little scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about Substack and what made you kind of dive I don't know, squarely into the world of Substack after kind of navigating all the other platforms.
Yeah, so it was more that there's 2 reasons, a selfish and a selfless. Um, starting yeah, starting on Twitter, I had, like, a really big spot in my heart for Twitter because it's the platform that, like, changed my life.
Mhm.
It's where I met some of my best friends, one of my co-founders. And it's just, oh, like, I love that platform, but after Elon bought it and changed it to be more like political news, it didn't have the same feel of the platform that I fell in love with. And I wasn't making as much money because, of all the controversy around it. There was less ghostwriting clients, and by fluke, I had just started repurposing content to LinkedIn, and most of my business was coming from LinkedIn, and LinkedIn was very good to me on the business side for a long time. And just over like a couple years of writing on LinkedIn, it just kind of eroded my soul a little bit because I really did not like the types of content I had to create to perform well on the platform. And it felt like I was being too curated. I even had some friends message me and they're like, hey, your content's doing good, but I know you personally and that's just not you. And I was like, "They're right." Like, so I tried doing LinkedIn in a way that felt more authentic, where I just kinda wrote whatever I wanted, and I got, like, mixed results with it.
Mm.
Sometimes it did really well and it outperformed, and other times it just, like, totally flopped and didn't get any visibility. Um, and then LinkedIn just got it started, like, really banning a lot of our clients for no reason, and we've actually had 2 clients almost take them to court because they've just suspended them without giving them any reason, and they're not using any automations or anything. And I was like, "Hey, this platform is getting, like,
Yep.
really risky." It's been very weird. And, like, I'm serious, like, we're just posting content for them, and, like, that's it. And we're like, our clients are getting constantly suspended. And I'm like, "Hey, this is getting a little weird." Um, I just feel like I need to try another platform, and I don't know why, I just had this feeling, I'm just gonna try Substack. Maybe it'll work, maybe not. That was, like, March of this year.
Mm.
And after a couple months of writing there and discovering the other creators, I'm like, this platform is incredible. Like there's people that are like making full-time incomes, helping people like find their career archetypes. And there's other
Mm.
ones who are, writing about deep philosophical essays and they're going viral and they're getting like crazy amounts